The foundations of the Donkey Society of Victoria, DSV, began in 1972 when, following newspaper advertisements and direct invitations, a group of people who were concerned about the fate of donkeys being transported down from the outback met at the home of Mr. and Mrs. P. Coffey at Valley Road in Wattle Glen on the 30th of May. One of the items actioned was the formation of a Donkey Society. This was initially called the Australian and New Zealand Donkey Breed Society, and that remained the name until 1975, when New Zealand felt it was the right time to form its own society. The new name of Australian Donkey Breed Society remained the same for the next 12 years, during which time state branches were formed and most of these found it necessary to become incorporated. Victoria's branch, now known as the Donkey Society of Victoria, was formed in June 1974. The association of the different state branches has varied, but in 1995 the state branches came together by cooperative agreement to form the affiliated Donkey Societies of Australia, with the Donkey Society of Victoria as one of the member groups. The purpose of the society is primarily to promote the well-being of donkeys in Australia, be they wild or domesticated, by encouraging the breeding of sound, quality donkeys, providing education on the care of donkeys, promoting research into all matters relating to donkeys, their health and general care, encouraging and supporting the exhibition of donkeys, participating in the prevention of cruelty to donkeys, and cooperating with any other organisation actively engaged in preventing cruelty, and promoting the public image of the donkey as a useful animal as well as an engaging pet. Most of us can picture a donkey. It is like a horse, but smaller, usually grey in colour, with comically large ears. But what is a donkey? The donkey, scientifically known as Equus asinus, is a member of the Equidae family, which also includes the horse, Equus ferus caballus. DNA research indicates that the E. asinus line separated from the caballus line around 3.4 to 3.9 million years ago. It is believed that donkeys were domesticated around 5000 BCE. However, the actual origins of the domestic donkey are somewhat murky. It is likely that they originated from wild donkey herds in North Africa, most likely the extinct Nubian ass and a relative of the Somalian ass. So, unlike horses, which are a Eurasian plains animal, the donkey is a semi-desert animal from Africa. There are still several cousins of the domestic donkey roaming in the wild. There is the onager, a subspecies of the Asiatic wild ass, and the Somali wild ass. Humans initially considered donkeys as prey. This changed when the donkey was domesticated. It was originally thought that the donkey domestication occurred either in Egypt or Mesopotamia, because the earliest evidence of donkey domestication was found in these locations, such as the 10 articulated donkey skeletons found in tombs at Abydos in Egypt, dating from around 3000 BCE, but there are also those who believe that domestication could have originated in northeast Africa. The correct term for the donkey is ass, which is thought to originate from the Hebrew word athon, which means female donkey. This word became the Greek asinos, and the Latin equivalent is asinus. More commonly in the English language, they are known as donkey, a word with somewhat unclear origins. It could be that it comes from the English word dun, describing the colour of the animal, and ki, meaning small. Or it could perhaps derive from the Flemish word donnekin, which means small, dun-coloured animal. A male entire donkey is called a jack, and a female donkey is called a jennet or jenny. Donkeys can be crossbred with horses, and the cross between a jack and a mare is called a mule, whilst the cross between a jenny and a stallion is called a hinny. Mules and hinnies are almost always sterile because their parents have a different number of chromosomes. Donkeys are more solitary than horses and do not form herds the same way. Instead, they commonly live in small groups or pairs. This is thought to be due to the sparser resources in their native territory, with the larger congregations formed for breeding when food is plentiful. As mentioned previously, donkeys are believed to have originated in the desert and, as a result, are adapted to be more efficient at using feed and water than a horse. Like horses, donkeys graze on grass, but they can also browse on tougher stuff like shrubs and bark. They can browse on low nutritional forage for 14 to 18 hours a day and walk up to 20 to 30 kilometers. The call of a donkey is called a bray. It can last for 20 seconds, be heard up to 3 kilometers away, and is believed to be easier to hear across rough terrain. It is unusual among Equidae in that the noise is made both when the donkey breathes in and when they breathe out. Each donkey's bray sounds unique. There are some less obvious physical differences between the donkey and the horse. One of these is the fact that a donkey can do a standing jump. This interesting talent relates to the donkey's ability to jump up to quite a substantial height from a standstill. They can do this because of different proportions and insertions of musculature that allows for a greater power than the muscling in a horse. The angles of their joints also play a part in their ability to jump like this. It also explains why donkeys can kick backwards, forwards, and sideways. Although they are considered especially useful and revered by some cultures, they are frequently regarded as substandard to the horse. They have a reputation for being stubborn, but what they are is stoic and in possession of a greater sense of self-preservation than horses. It is awfully hard to make a donkey do something that it considers dangerous. However, they can become a very willing partner once you have earned their confidence. These days there are around 40 million donkeys in the world, made up of 97 different breeds. From the same size as a miniature pony up to the size of a horse, and can come in a variety of colours. The first mention of donkeys in Australia was in 1791 when Governor King wrote to Under Secretary Nepean to ask that donkeys be brought to Australia. It is not known if these donkeys arrived, but in 1793 the ship Shan Hormuzia arrived from Bengal with a cargo that contained 6 donkeys. To start with, the donkeys were not used much outside of the cities, but this changed over time. A notable incident for Australian donkeys occurred in 1866 when the Scottish pastoralist Sir Thomas Elder of Beltana Station imported some donkeys from India to be used for cart work in South Australia. These desert-adapted animals were comfortable in the arid outback areas that colonists were expanding into. In addition, in parts of the Kimberley in Western Australia, there are native plants of the genus Crotalaria, known as rattlepods, that contain a poisonous substance called pyrrolizidine alkaloids, which causes Kimberley walkabout disease. Horses were very susceptible, but donkeys either did not eat it or were immune. They could also be used in areas of the Kimberley and Queensland where the cattle tick and red water disease limited the use of bullocks. For residents of the outback, the donkey teams became a welcome sight as they brought in vital supplies to remote stations. Donkeys were normally harnessed 4 or 5 abreast and could be found in teams of up to 20 or 40 donkeys. A team of 24 to 28 donkeys could pull a weight of up to 10 tons. The harnessed donkeys were guided by the voice of the teamster, who walked along beside them, and they could manage an average of 10 miles per day, even over difficult terrain. Up until the 1930s, teamster donkeys were a particularly important component of Australia's inland transport network. But with the increased use of automobiles, they became unnecessary. In fact, by the 1940s, the teams of working donkeys were gone. Often, animals that were no longer needed were turned loose. These loose animals are usually called feral, which means that they are a domestic animal that is no longer in captivity. Being so admirably adapted to the desert meant that these loose donkeys thrived in the outback. Estimated numbers now range from tens of thousands to several million free-roaming donkeys, mostly in the arid zones of Central Australia, Western Australia, and the top end. However, their presence posed a threat to livestock farmers, as it was considered that they competed with cattle and sheep for food and water, and conservationists argued that they were detrimental to the native wildlife and ecosystems. Since the donkeys were classed as domestic stock, they received little to no protection, and the usual strategy aimed at managing them is eradication. The most common method of control is to cull them, usually through shooting. There are also concerns about the worldwide donkey skin trade and the sale of Australian donkeys to China for the production of donkey skin gelatin known as ejiao. But since the early 1970s, Australia's donkey herds have had their supporters, and donkeys have increased in popularity since then. There has also been the introduction of other donkey breeds. There are now 4 donkey breeds commonly found in Australia. The Mediterranean Miniature. This is the smallest breed, similar in size to a miniature pony. They were first introduced to Australia from the USA in the 1990s. The breed originated on the islands of Sardinia and Sicily. Because they were so small, they were employed to turn grinding stones for grain inside houses. They were also used to carry water and supplies. They make popular pets and can also pull a small cart. They are very strong for their size. The English Irish. These are donkeys that were imported into Australia from England and Ireland. It is believed that donkeys were first brought to the British Isles by the Romans around 43 AD. They usually measure no more than 11 hands and are great for children. The Jack Novington Benjamin was one of the first to arrive to Australia around 1973. The Australian Teamster. These are descended from the donkey teams of inland Australia. They are slightly bigger than the English Irish at around 12 hands, but they can get bigger. They are most commonly grey dun with a dorsal stripe and are never broken coloured. They can be big and sturdy enough for an adult to ride. The American Mammoth Jackstock. This large breed of donkey is from North America and descends from large donkeys imported into the USA from around 1785. Jacks of this breed are often used in the breeding of large mules, hence the jackstock part of their name. They were brought into Australia in the days of the Australian teams, but then the breed died out or was bred out. They were reintroduced to Australia in 1999 with the importation of Coakley Major Leo. These large donkeys must be over 13 2 hands high for the jennies and 14 hands high for the jacks. Their large size makes them very popular for riding. Donkeys in Australia are now used for many different recreational purposes. Carriage driving, packing, riding. They are also used in public displays, such as of Simpson and his donkey. Many owners also just enjoy them as an engaging and clever pet. For more information about donkeys, please contact the Donkey Society of Victoria at www.donkey.org.au or find us on Facebook, Instagram or YouTube.